It's cold outside and even a little bit inside today, and Peter Kalah just died. Don't know who that is, I didn't either, but as always, there's a lesson we're going to learn about Bible translation hidden inside the story of the death of this man that you and I did not know. Sorry to be so morbid, that was kind of weird. Here's the thing, and here's what happened. I noticed Kalah's obituary in the paper, and it mentioned that he was the progenitor of PDQ Bach, something I've heard of many times before in my life, but have never looked into and therefore never understood. I knew PDQ Bach had something to do with classical music, there's the Bach, and I picked up from the PDQ, which, means pretty darn quick, that it must be humorous. That was basically it. I even remember wondering as a child whether maybe there really was a PDQ Bach, the brother of CPE Bach, which is Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, which is the son of Johann Sebastian Bach. So anyway, I took the opportunity of Kalah's death to get all this figured out. I essayed to find a PDQ Bach recording online, and I knew just the one because the obituary mentioned it. It was the so-called Concerto for Horn and Hardart. I listened with my wife to the recording, which appeared to come from the 1960s maybe. It started with some witty, dry humor that we both found appealing, something in the vein of Garrison Keillor. We laughed loud enough that we attracted the attention of children who were supposed to be in bed. It was clear very quickly that PDQ Bach was indeed a joke, but a very intelligent one, because a lot of jokes were baked even into the music that Kalah composed in the name of PDQ Bach. The shtick that Kalah used was that the music was a recently discovered manuscript that was composed by PDQ Bach. Classical music is a language with a set of expectations, and in the composition, Kalah found humorous ways to violate these expectations. My wife and I just kept cracking up. But the title, why the title? Concerto for Horn and Hardart. What's a Hardart? I looked hard at the cover art for the LP that we were listening to. It was the YouTube thumbnail. Nothing on the cover tipped me off. None of the art looked hard. I started to fear that it was some kind of crass joke and that maybe I didn't want to know the answer. But nothing struck me as crass in the presentation or the cover art, so I looked up Hardart. Do you know what a Hardart is? I was 100% ignorant. You know I like doing this, and you know you like guessing, and you especially like knowing. Pause the video and comment. Who knows why the Concerto for Horn and Hardart was called that? It's time to tell you, and then to reveal the little lesson for Bible translation, or really for any translation. Wikipedia revealed to me that Horn and Hardart was a food services company in the United States noted for operating the first food service automats in Philadelphia, New York City, and Baltimore. Oh, that was the joke. Funny. Concerto for Horn and Hardart. But the chance for me to laugh at that joke was over. I did not catch the reference, so I did not get the joke. And looking it up is never funny. Explain a joke to anyone, they never ever laugh. And once you start using technical terminology for that explanation, you'll actually get fewer laughs than none. You'll get those weird unlaughs, like a hiccup you have while breathing in. But let me explain further anyway. Kalah used the classic humorous trick of the double meaning, the equivocation. Horn is doing double duty as the reference to a very common instrument in classical music, or set of instruments, and as a surname that graced a popular restaurant chain, popular at the time. You start the phrase with one expectation formed by the word concerto. You end it with that expectation being humorously overturned because Hardart shows what he really meant. But the restaurant chain Horn and Hardart reached its peak popularity around the time that Kalah conceived the joke, I presume, in the 1960s. And it closed its last restaurant far away from where I lived when I was 10 and a half years old. So I know me some trivia. My eldest son is even better at it, or I think will be, I predict so, but I had simply never heard of Horn and Hardart. Never read a novel in which it was featured, never saw a tattered leftover H&H sign, never encountered it in a history book or a documentary or a forgotten business card in the back of my grandmother's desk drawer. So I missed out. That joke will never strike me as funny. I had no chance, and I never will. Cue transition to the moral, because I can't help but think of Shakespeare and of the King James Version. Do you get tired of me cueing transitions to the moral like this? I don't. I love language, and I love the King James, and I love English, and I loved the PDQ Bach piece that I heard, and I love humor. But here's the lesson that occurred to me. Some experiences are unrepeatable. People lament the loss of cultural icons like Shakespeare and religious icons like the King James Version. They think it's so important that everyone get the cultural or religious experiences, respectively, that you're supposed to get from these great texts, and they are great. But let me inform you right now of one experience you will never have while reading Shakespeare or the King James Version. You will not have the experience of the original hearers or readers. These texts are not written in your English, so you are going to miss some of the words and, yes, some of the humor. There is wit in Shakespeare that you just won't get unless it's explained to you by experts. And there's humor even in the King James Bible. Have you ever noticed this? In my experience, some of the genuinely funny lines in the Bible did not strike me as funny as a kid, even though I read them. Not, I think, because I was unable to get the jokes, but because those jokes were wrapped in ornate Elizabethan ribbons that made me feel like I was in one of those rooms at Grandma's house where jokes were not allowed and you had to sit up straight and keep your hands on your lap. It was a no-joke book. Joking was sacrilegious, I thought. But that is not the way the King James sounded to its original readers. I'm not saying the King James used up-to-the-minute language for 1611, but it at least used up-to-the-century or half-century language. A classic example I can give for the humor I long missed is in one of the passages that I read often as a kid, Matthew 7, the last chapter of the Sermon on the Mount. Why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considereth not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. I'm not saying it's impossible for today's King James readers to catch the humor here. I will never forget hearing the story of a little boy who did just that. I presume he was hearing from the King James based on the age of the story. He burst out laughing during family devotions when his father read this passage. Good on him, he got it. But the rest of the family didn't. That was part of the reason the story was told, and I didn't. And I think the Elizabethan language that now strikes us as solemn and august and religious and important, was one of the reasons I didn't get the joke. I also think that some of the word choice, because it's just a bit archaic, contributed to this. Listen to the New Living Translation, which speaks our English, as well as the King James spoke Elizabethan English. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite! First get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. That's funny! Speck is what I would say, not mote. That's not my English. I don't think I ever say mote, and I like plank even better than log, but both options are my English. Both are funny. Beam just wasn't clear to me. It's kind of hard to say why. Maybe it was my fault, but maybe it was because beam can mean beam of sunlight. I don't know, but I did not get it. It had to be explained to me, so the joke was not funny. This is so far from a criticism of the King James. It's also not a criticism of you or of myself. We're not dummies to miss Elizabethan language. The experience of hearing this the way its authors, and by that I mean the King James translators in this case, the experience of hearing this passage the way they intended it to sound is simply not available to me. Not without some study that, again, turns the joke into an explanation. It's good and right to train children to read Shakespeare, especially if they're teenagers. I think it's good and right to train them to read the King James. Both are worthwhile cultural experiences. And the King James comes with the added huge bonus that it's God's Word. But language has changed. There's no getting around this. No one alive today can hear either of these texts the way their authors intended. And I'm treating the King James translators as authors in this case. Not without an update, a revision. And even then, some jokes and turns of phrase just won't be translatable. This applies too to the Hebrew and Greek. There are literary devices and moments of wit that are impossible to translate. They can be explained, they can't be experienced, not unless you work very hard for years to become as close as possible to a native speaker. And I said speaker, not just reader, of Biblical Hebrew or of Koine Greek. I have not done these things. Some pleasures and some insights that I could otherwise get from the Hebrew Bible and Greek New Testament are lost to me. And this is the way God made the world. This is, as I so often say, the situation our good God gave us. Be glad for the good that the Concerto for horn and Hardart did for its original hearers. I'm sure they cracked up. It reminds me of the time when I posted a picture of me and my son on social media, telling everyone how I had taken him on a father-son outing to a Scottish restaurant. Only there was a McDonald's cup on the table between us. Do you get it? You surely will. But your great-great-grandson may not get it. Not after a lamentable E. coli outbreak in 2045 and a national ice cream shortage in 2046 and a horrific civil war in 2024, all combined to make McDonald's a thing of the past. A thing of our time, not of the time of your descendants. McDonald's jokes or references will not be funny to them. So don't read your King James at McDonald's while listening to PDQ Bach. Or rather, don't be disappointed if you find that it's impossible to repeat an experience that others have, one that in God's good providence you just can't have. The best way to have the kind of experiences that were intended by the King James translators is to read the Bible in your own English, in a contemporary translation. I would never discourage anyone from learning to read the Elizabethan English of the King James if they've read the Bible in their own English first. That is the far more important of the two experiences. Now, I spend hours and hours on this very nerdy channel teaching people how to read the King James Version, how to get as close as possible to the experience of those original readers in 1611. No one I know of will take you closer than I will. I'm not boasting. I just don't know anyone else who's doing this kind of work. But none of us will ever quite get there, and that's okay. God made the world a changing place. He wrote history in successive chapters. You are in this one.